Hello, artist, beautiful, amazing artist. Welcome back to the Art Life Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Folsom. I'm an artist, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm pretty much everything that I ever want to be, and it seems to constantly be evolving, and I love it. So, welcome. So excited to have you all here. Today we have an amazing question and topic that came in, wondering how to know at what point your paintings can be sold. How do you know when you are good enough to be able to sell your paintings? Okay, so I always find this question really interesting because it's almost as if the person thinks that there is some kind of checklist or graduation or stamp of approval. And as human beings, we like those sort of things. And even our cultures, our society is set up that way. We go to school, we get certifications, we get, degrees. I went to art college with a ton of other artists, and we all left with a degree. And yet so many artists still struggled with the confidence to sell their work. They still didn't believe that their work was good enough, right? So this mysterious good enough. When is the work good enough, right? Or when do you know that you're ready to start selling your paintings? And honestly, my answer to this is you are ready to start selling your paintings when A, you need the money and can sell your paintings, and B, somebody else wants to buy it, right? Somebody else wants to buy your painting. That's how you know that you are good enough, or AKA ready. So I feel like this waiting game that can happen whenever we're becoming an artist, we're studying, we're growing, we're learning the fundamentals, we're starting to make our own work. But then sometimes there's this waiting period, or when I get there, right? Or when I get good enough, when the quality of the work is there, then I will blank. Then I will start exhibiting my work. Then I will start selling my work, right? And the problem with this is you never really get there. And it's not really clear what there is, it's not really clear what are the markers, what are the benchmarks that you're judging that against. How are you going to know that you've gotten there, that you've gotten good enough, right? Are you going to put that in the determination of somebody else's opinion? Maybe you're studying with a teacher and you're waiting for them to say, hey, guess what? You're good enough now to go do this thing. I can tell you right now, most teachers are, first of all, not even that interested, sadly, in your personal success. Or they don't know that you are waiting for them to check off those boxes for you, or give you the A-OK, you're good enough now, you can go out and do it sort of thing, right? So I just think that is a huge mistake. A huge mistake is waiting, this waiting game. Waiting is not a strategy. It is never a strategy, right? So I feel like there is a natural progression that starts to happen as you're learning, as you're growing. You might be posting your work on social media, not really even intending to sell it, but somebody, messages you and says, oh my gosh, I love that painting. Is that for sale? Or they comment, is this for sale? They love the painting. They're interested in it. So sometimes these things just happen organically when people start to acknowledge your work and start to express an interest in it. That's one way that you know that you're ready to sell. The other way is, well, what happened for me is just I needed money. I was in art school and we had an opportunity, which was a student run show. Basically, the students were responsible for setting up the show. You could put in as much work as you wanted to. You could sell, however much work you were able to sell during the show, during the duration of the show. And so I was Yes, I'm all in. And what's funny is the other shows that went on in the prior 3 years were faculty juried shows. These were faculty juried shows, and I got rejected from most of them. Because most of the faculty members did not like my artwork. They thought it was too antiquated, too old-fashioned, not pushing art forward, not pushing the envelope, not creative enough, right? So here I had like this stack of reasons why I wasn't ready to sell my work yet, right? Like this stack of rejections in my past from these faculty members. Now, if I had allowed those things to stop me, if I had allowed somebody else's opinion of my artwork to stop me from taking action and moving forward, I would not be sitting here today talking with you. Okay, I would not be working with hundreds of artists online in the Art Life School program. It just never would have happened, right? So at some point you have to take your own power back, and you also have to get out there and test it. You have to get out there and try things. You've got to put yourself out there, and with that comes risking rejection, right? Risking failure. But I was just so grateful, to have that financial income to make up the money really that I had lost, and more that I had lost over the last 6 months from, giving up those part-time jobs so that I could paint more and get better at my craft. None of these paintings were perfect by any means, I would say maybe the skill level was at an intermediate level, just barely beyond beginner, I would say. But you know what? There was spirit in them, and I liked the paintings enough. I felt good about them, going to homes that, people would want to buy them and have them in their homes. But nobody ever was ever going to tell me, hey, Kelly, knock, knock, knock. Hey, Kelly, you're good enough to sell your paintings now. Nobody was ever going to tell me that. You have to decide for yourself when you're good enough. And I would say being good enough really just doesn't have anything to do with it in my book. It doesn't. It really doesn't. This mysterious phrase, good enough. And I know I've struggled with this thought my whole life, being good enough. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? I've struggled with that probably from 2 years old. This is old stuff. It's really, really old stuff. It's old wounds. It's really the wounded self, right? And the wounded self is not our highest self. So we always want to be operating out of our highest self version, not the wounded self. The highest self does believe in herself, right? She does act in courage, take acts of faith and take steps of courage. She does put herself out there. She does risk failure or risk loss or perhaps even risk rejection, I'm not going to sit here and say that the people who made comments about me, my peers who made fun of me during that show, I'm not going to sit here and say that those things did not hurt, because they did, because I want to fit in just like everybody else, right? But I've learned, now that I'm in my 40s, like apparently me fitting in is not the point. And it's not really my forte. And that's okay. So I'm not going to sit here and say that none of that hurt. Even having faculty members not really showing much confidence in me or appreciation for what I did really hurt. That was really, really a struggle, for me. But at the end of the day, we are the ones who have to decide that we are good enough, that our work is good enough as is in this moment, especially if somebody wants it, especially if it's bringing joy and inspiration and beauty into somebody else's life. Who am I to say then that it's not good enough, right? Like they love it, they want to buy it. Who am I to say, oh no, it's not good enough, it's not good enough? Like you're robbing them of their blessing. Other than that, just technically speaking, just to recap, the only thing I would say is just make sure that the majority of the work that you are putting out there is independent work. Once you hit that intermediate skill level, you want to make sure that you are doing, I would say, at least 50-50. 50% student work, class work, let's say, or lesson work, however you want to word that, and 50% independent work. As you continue to grow in your skills and improve in your skills, you want to increase the percentage of independent work that you're doing, because that is really ownership in your work, and that is really claiming your artistic identity when you start to do more of this independent work. Vice versa, if you're a beginner, I see a lot of beginners shoot themselves in the foot because they start off wanting to do 100% independent work and no lesson work. So if you're a total beginner, that's really going to screw you up, So if you're a total beginner, you really only want to be doing about 20% independent work, 80% lesson work, class work, student work, whether that's at a college or like if you're in the Art Life School program or studying online, no matter where you're studying. If you're a total beginner, you want to be studying 80% of the time, doing lesson work, 20% independent work. For advanced, more professional artists who have really advanced their skill level, you want to make sure that you're doing 80% independent work and 20% class lesson work or workshops or things like that, right? So you have to make sure that your balance of lesson, class work, and independent work is at the right balance for the skill level that you're at. Okay, so that you don't get out of whack and so you don't shoot yourself in the foot, basically, on your art life journey. All right, my friends, I will talk to you next week. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, happy painting. Bye.